Hello. This is just a special little recording that I'm going to be putting out. This is just an experiment since I didn't have time to read yesterday from me. This will probably be released Monday or Wednesday, sometime about there, since I don't know how much time I will have to do a lot of streams. So my thought is that I will record uh, what I will be reading today, and then I'll release it then for you people, since I love you. You are like my dear family, and I appreciate you all. Anyway, so for some context, so I've been playing a lot of Legendary recently, and I got an idea. So new ideas for or at least new takes on the idea of superheroes has kind of come out in the last little bit. We've got Invincible, The Boys, various other properties are getting picked up, and I wanted to kind of see if I could give it a shot. Along with my Skyfire story, though, funnily enough, I'm going to have to change the name of Skyfire because of the nature of some other thing has that title, and so I do not want to get sued, so I'll have to figure out something else. But I've just been playing a lot of Legendary, and I was just thinking, I could make each of these and turn it into its own, like, analog. If Omni-Man and Homelander are a thing, why not do something like that with the Heroes in Legendary, which are based off of Marvel? And I just thought, let's do this. This might be cool. So, and that's kind of the start of Supershots. And so, let's do it. The obligatory preamble regarding the state of superheroes. Superheroes are real. Supervillains are real. This is not up for debate. There is no room for doubt. There is no room in dismissing the notion. People with superhuman abilities have begun to surface throughout the world, and we would need to be appraised of the whys and wherefores. We at the Department of Justice have interviewed a number of these individuals, all of whom will remain anonymous as to their origins, mindsets, and missions. Their creations were as varied as could possibly be considered. From alien planets across the galaxy coming here after either invasion or planetary destruction, science experiments gone wrong, genetic anomalies that result in superhuman powers, or even intellects that allow creation of suits that grant abilities akin to superpowers. The current stance of the United States is that so long as these superheroes uphold the law within their spheres of influence, they will not be subject to the law. However, in such cases that there are supervillains that begin to disrupt the public peace, it is the superheroes that should be the first responders. We call for all superheroes to place themselves on a register so that all local law enforcement may place them as a first line of defense against superpowered criminals. If they resist, we have created our own task force of highly trained agents who will lay down the law wherever any superhero refuses to capitulate. If lethal force is required, it will be used. Supershot 1. The day superheroes go to work. Section 1. Running his hand through his close-cropped blonde hair, Ricky Jones sat in front of the low-ceilinged Salt Lake courtroom, feeling distinctly uneasy regarding his fate. He distinctly hoped nothing too bad would happen. If he was convicted of this, he was probably never going to get any colleges. His high school had already kicked him out, which was particularly painful since he'd been in the middle of his senior year. All he would have to worry about at this point was prison time, which he hoped wouldn't happen, despite the fact that he was probably going to get a significant amount. But that would depend on if he had a good lawyer. Good morning, Richie. a somewhat slurred, high-pitched voice remarked, followed by a dark-skinned woman with a pretty oval face and a slightly mussed suit. She had a large folder under her arm, as well as a briefcase. It's Ricky, she credited. I don't care. It's all a variation of Richard. She adjusted the expensive-looking, but probably cheap sunglasses covering her eyes. Casually, she adjusted her folder and started flicking through her paperwork. Named Jennifer Conroy by. Either way, at this point, we are looking at a possible 20 years of prison time for creation and possession of nuclear materials, another 20 for possession of classified alien technology, and a life sentence for destroying nearly a block of unoccupied houses with a small uranium explosion. She set the paperwork down, then fixed her sunglasses on him. How the hell are you not dead? Boy's charm and mental intellect? Ricky shrugged. Okay. Jennifer raised one hand and put the other on her temple. I do not want any lip from you. I already have to deal with enough crap at the moment. I'm nursing a hangover of legendary proportions and got the call this morning that I have to represent you. At least it isn't the completely retarded high school dip craps that broke into the morgue last week. At least I don't have to say that necrophilia is undeserving of the maximum prison sentence. She made a zip-it motion with her hand to force Solon to ask about what the hell she was talking about. However, if you stay quiet and do not say jack or beep, I will get you out of this with no jail or prison time. Wait, how the... Rick cut off as the bailiff rapped his baton against the bench to announce the judge's arrival. Judge Priest was an old man who wore his robes of office fairly well despite looking like a decrepit monkey skeleton. Fairly dignified, but incongruously, Rick could see a bunch of tats on his arm underneath the robe. Okay, well, looks like we got one of those acts of God cases here, he remarked, putting his glasses on and examining the papers. So what we have in front of us is a significant amount of property damage, possession of nuclear materials, and possession of classified technology. Your Honor, my client pleads guilty on all counts. Rick's lawyer, the person who is supposed to be defending his ass from the long arm of the law, not that it had really gotten him, hadn't really gotten him already, was now selling his butt up the river. Well, that was quick. Judge Priest looked over his glasses at her, seeming both relieved and intrigued. Why? This. Jennifer pulled out another document from her folder and handed it to the judge, sliding it along his lectern with one finger. Considering the nature of the crimes committed, the federal government is quite interested in, shall we say, making a use of a unique commodity. Rick aped it. Jennifer, what is going on? He had never agreed to work for the government. Rick began, but Jennifer turned and lowered her sunglasses to glare at him with green-streaked, bloodshot eyes. It was one of the most horrifying and stupefying things he'd ever seen. So that's what a hangover did to you. Anything, Rick was scared sleepless of little ever failure. He swallowed what he was going to say. Judge Priest accepted the document and looked it over. So am I to assume he's not going to do any jail time and is instead going to do CI work for the rest of his natural life? He glanced over his glasses at Rick. Have you agreed to this of your own free will? Yeah, he has. Jennifer's tone was rather airy as she walked over and gripped his shoulder with a strength that should not have been possible. A woman in her size. He signed it himself. The dysgraphic mess at the bottom. Let me see. Rick flushed, but he just nodded and voiced his slightly unsteady assent. Hopefully they would think he was extremely grateful rather than royally pissed. Jennifer released his shoulder and strode back to the judge's podium. So, everything sorted? She asked. Shaking his head, clearly in consternation over the rapid series of events, Judge Priest handed the paper over to her. Well, everything looks in order, including signatures and stamps of people way above my pay grade, so I'll consider this dismissed. He slammed his gavel down and walked out. Jennifer motioned for Rick to follow her, which he was a little bit conflicted about. On the one hand, he wasn't going to prison for the rest of his life, but on the other hand, he was apparently going to be an indentured servant to the government for an undisclosed amount of time. If that was even the people who wanted him. They'd already stolen his signature, which how they'd gotten it was a mystery since his signature was extremely hard to duplicate due to his dysgraphia. So what was stopping them from impersonating government officials? This is probably one of those shadow organizations masquerading as the government. Rick thought out with Donnie horror. And I'm going to be working for them. Unless I run. But then again, if they have these kinds of resources, then I'm probably screwed. Well, that was simple, Jennifer remarked, taking out a can of Bud Light from her purse and quaffed it, effing it in one swig. Rick gaped at her, amazed at how fast she chugged it. All right. You ready to work? She asked, completely ignoring his open mouth, save for putting her finger on his chin and pushing it shut. Okay, what kind of work? Rick demanded. That's classified, so I can't say anything in public, but everything will be revealed once you get to your new workplace. Jennifer took out another beer can and drank it in one gulp. Rick's jaw dropped open again. How are you putting that down? He asked. Necessity, she shrugged, then pulled up a third can. So who's driving? Rick asked carefully. 'Cause I'm pretty sure you're going to get pulled over with that much Bud Light in your system. You'd be surprised at how fast my body consumes alcohol, Jennifer smirked, then pulled out a fourth can. With one finger, she flicked the cap off, causing it to fly through the air and into a trash can. Besides, this is nothing. Who the bleep are you? Rick demanded, clenching his fists and getting ready to throw a punch and run. He didn't need the tech he found. And he would be perfectly fine without it. Casually, Jennifer reached into her jacket and held up the two golden bracers he'd found. I imagine you'd rather have these back, she remarked, spinning one of them around her finger almost nonchalantly. How did Rick gaped like a fish. It was becoming a habit. We have a number of ways of getting what we need in order to get the job done. Jennifer replaced them inside her jacket. Don't worry, you'll get them back, but only with a few provisos. What? Rick asked. Conditions, Jennifer clarified, seeming slightly annoyed that he hadn't known the definition of proviso. Teenagers, she muttered. No vocabulary. Reading and English were never my best subjects, Rick shrugged. Clearly, Jennifer remarked, raising an eyebrow as she pulled a fifth can from her bag. How many do you have in there? Rick asked, shock fading to morbid curiosity. You don't want to know. Jennifer smirked and chugged it down. So are you ever sober? Rick couldn't help but keep on digging. Oh, you do not want to see me when I'm sober, Jennifer tossed the can into a trash bin and licked her lips. It would be quite ugly. Really? Rick asked skeptically. Generally, people get crazier when they're drunk. Jennifer, her smile was wry. Normally, you'd be correct, but I'm a little different. She opened the door and walked over to a smooth, futuristic car that looked like it was something out of Minority Report or iRobot. Very similar to you, considering what you survived. Yeah, Rick thought, considering I survived a small nuclear explosion. And then there was what had come after, and the problem was he didn't have the bands to bring his power down this time. Maybe I should try and mug her. How different are we talking? Rick asked carefully as she pressed a button on her key and opened up both doors. You'll see at some point, Jennifer smiled knowingly as she gestured toward the passenger side. Get in. Should I try to cut and run? Rick thought for a moment, but she had his bands. I technically don't need them, but having them felt so good. Okay, Rick said as he slid into the car. So what happens now? We go to our home base. Jennifer tapped on the power button, causing the engine to ignite with a low hum. I think that you'll find it quite a bit more accommodating than the basement you were living in before your accident. Rick made a face. Yeah, pretty much everything. It would be better than that weed-soaked rat hole. He agreed, leaning his head against the doorframe of the car as they pulled out of the parking lot and started driving out of the city. So, he paused, trying to think of a possible way to make small talk before you realized they were headed for the freeway. So, how are you like me? He asked, covering up his confusion through inquisitiveness. What exactly am I going to be doing? And why on earth are we going on the freeway out of town into the mountains? Jennifer thought for a moment. We're fairly similar in terms of one of your power sets, but you and I have difference in terms of where we get them. How similar are we talking? Rick asked, interested despite how much the prospect scared him. From the few photos I saw that were on social media before you managed to get control of yourself, I'd say the scales and the blue tinge are the major difference. Jennifer shrugged. Yeah. Rick glanced at his hands, then at her jacket. You're not going to get them. She glanced to the side, one eyebrow raising ever so slightly over her sunglasses. Either my boobs or the Omega bands. So that's what they're called, Rick said. Then he realized the first part of her remark. Wait, what? I'm joking, Jennifer chuckled, clearly immensely amused by his reaction. You're staring at their general area, so I couldn't resist. You weren't looking that way, I assume. No! Rick raised his hand. I have a girlfriend. He'd had a girlfriend. She'd broken up with him while he was then held in jail. I've been together 4 years now, but after what happened, things abruptly becoming sympathetic. Jennifer patted his shoulder. We know about Andy breaking up with you, she said comfortingly. I know the feeling. I got dumped a while back. Back too. Hard to believe, but it happens, I guess. Rick tried his best to communicate, but he'd only ever been in one relationship. Jennifer seemed like the kind of person who'd been around the block a few times. She gave him a slightly condescending smirk. You're still a kid. You'll find someone new. I hope so, Rick nodded. Though, I imagine that considering I'm going to be working for the government, I'm likely to have no free time at all. And also considering the fact that I was all over the local news, turning into a rampaging, scaly behemoth man, I don't think that getting a date is going to be anything short of a miracle. Casually, Jennifer opened a compartment next to the steering wheel. Compliments of the house, she remarked, handing him a wallet filled with the usual number of cards. Honestly, though, you probably will, considering you're going to be given a whole new identity in a new state, probably with a paid for apartment, car, and the rest. Jaw dropping almost as bad as when she chugged the 5 beers in the course of 10 minutes. Rick accepted the wallet and looked through it. It was all there. A passport, driver's license, credit card, the works. Who the bleep are you people? Rick asked, preparing to make a grab for the bands and leap out of the car. Try grabbing it, and I'll beat you to a pulp. Jennifer raised her hand and then made a fist. I'm not really interested in having a fight. I really like this suit. It's Armani silk. Okay, Rick said slowly. So are you guys the government? Not really. Jennifer abruptly turned down a side road out into the mountains. We're more of our own thing. It's the best description I could come up with for now. So, where are we going? He asked, glancing up at the walls of rock surrounded them. You will see, my young friend. Jennifer abruptly turned and shot down a dirt road between two cliffs, right toward a flat wall. Ah! Rick screamed in horror, bracing himself for impact as Jennifer gunned the accelerator. Just before they struck the wall, the rock slid open, revealing a viscous blue mass. They shot through the liquid and emerged into a wide hangar filled with cars that could have been clones of the one they were sitting in. And what the bleep is wrong with you? Rick yelled at Jennifer, who was grinning like Norman Bates considering the prospect of murder. Are you insane? Yes. Jennifer smiled, then grabbed a whiskey bottle and popped the cap off with her thumb. Even though he knew he was trapped, even though he knew that she was some kind of superhuman, Rick took advantage of her taking a drink from the bottle and reached toward the bands. Before he got halfway there, Jennifer raised her pinky and faced her finger and poked him in the eyes. Ow! Rick grabbed his eyes, the stinging pain straight into his brain. Thankfully, she hadn't popped them, but it still hurt. Did you have to blind me? I warned you. Jennifer shrugged, then drained the whiskey bottle. Come on, you big baby. Let's get out of here. Fumbling around for the door handle, Rick shook his head to of the pain, massaging his eyes. Ow! He clenched his eyes shut and pushed open the door, carefully swinging his legs out. That hurt. Good. It was supposed to, Jennifer remarked. The door on the other side sliding closed with a low hiss. Didn't you ever learn that patience is a virtue? You would have gotten the bands back eventually. Also, you can't get out without special permission codes, so what's the point? I'm so screwed. Rick slowly forced his eyes open, only to close them again due to the disorienting fuzz over his vision. Groaning, he put his hand on the car and let his eyes calm down before he finally opened them up. Feeling okay? Jennifer asked sweetly. Come on, we gotta get going. So, where exactly are we? Rick grunted. Welcome to Mount Orthrus. Jennifer gestured around them. The base of operations for Phalanx. Rick gaped. What the?